na vavatu sahano bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinav aditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, namaste, and welcome to our Wednesday evening reading and discussion group, in which we are reading the book Realizing God, a collection of talks by Swami Prabhavananda, delivered from the 1930s through the 1970s, collected by his loving and devoted disciple Nalini Edith Tipple, and published as this book, Realizing God. A real treasure, because it is the distilled wisdom of the Swami. Over all those decades, Nalini selected the best that the Swami had to say on any given topic and put that together and published this book as that collection of talks. So it is indeed a treasure. Before we begin, is there anything that anyone would like to comment on, or any concern or question that you would like to raise before we start our reading and discussion for this evening? All right, Haima, please let us know where we are in the book.
Okay.
And read on.
Okay, sure, Brother Shankara. Good evening, everyone, and namaste. We are on page 101 in Realizing God book. That is second paragraph. I will be starting at the topic of reincarnation and immortality. Whence, why, whither? These are the eternal questions. Whence have we come? Why are we here? Whither do we go? The naturalist philosophers want us to be realistic and point out, why bother about such questions? Live your life. Make the most of it. These people think that they're very practical and that those who inquire into such truths and devote themselves to finding a solution are dreamers. But you see a man walking the streets with a big load on his head, and you ask him, what is that load? I don't know. Whence are you coming? Oh, I have no idea. Whither are you going with this load? I don't know. I don't care to know. Would you consider such a fellow practical or realistic? We have this life. What is the meaning of it? Why are we born, and what is the meaning of death? Every day we know that people are dying. We read the obituary notices, but the most peculiar thing is that none of us believe I will die. Very true. We are constituted in such a way that we cannot think it. The real solution to these problems is not to be had through theological doctrines, philosophy, or even scriptures. The only solution is to be found within yourself when you realize the nature of your true self as birthless and deathless. When you realize the true nature of the Atman or self as one with the universal self, Brahman. Only the mystic who has realized that unity behind this manifold appearance has solved the problem. And each one of us individually has to solve that problem as well. Today, you hear everywhere in the Christian world how Christ rose from the dead. Each one of us has to rise from the dead. In other words, we have to overcome death and attain to immortality by knowing the true nature of the Atman. We are buried in this physical body, this physical consciousness, and we have to rise above that. That is resurrection. That is the attainment of immortality. There is a story that the king of the gods, Indra, once became a pig wallowing in mire. He had a she pig and a lot of baby pigs and was very happy. Then some god saw his plight and told him, "You are the king of the gods. You have all the gods under your command. Why are you here?" But Indra said, "Never mind. I'm all right here. I don't care for heaven while I have this soul and these little pigs." The poor gods were at their wits' end. After a time, they decided to slay all the pigs one after another. When all were dead, Indra began to weep and mourn. Then the gods ripped his pig body open. Indra came out of it and began to laugh when he realized what a hideous dream he had had. He, the king of the gods, becoming a pig, had thought that pig life was the only life. I tell this story to indicate to you the ultimate nature of every one of us. In the Upanishads, we find the great seer addressing all mankind this way. Hear, ye children of immortal bliss. Svetesvatara Upanishad. You are the children of immortal bliss. Your true nature is infinite. Not that you exist, but that you are existence itself. Not that you love, but that you are love itself. Not that you know, but that you are knowledge itself. Infinite knowledge, abiding love, and immortal bliss. That is your nature.
Hold on just one moment.
That is everyone's nature.
For those of you who are interested, this Svetasvatara Upanishad was Swami Prabhavananda's favorite. One of the reasons is it is so warm-hearted and congenial and so loving. As a result of that long love of it, he shared it with many of his disciples, that love. And one of his disciples, Devadatta, Devadatta, Devadatta Kali, Kali, wrote a book on the Svetasvatara Upanishad. It is a magnificent book. While I could still read, I could still see well enough to read. I read that book, and I read sections of it more than once because it is so well crafted and explains the nature of reality from the perspective of the speaker, the person called Svetasvatara, which is not a name. It means he who owns white mules. So Svetasvatara spoke this Upanishad. And it is, as I said, Swami Prabhavananda's favorite. So anyone who wants to dive deeper into that particular Upanishad, that book is well worth your time. Any comments or questions? All right, dear, please move on.
Okay. Infinite knowledge, abiding love, and immortal bliss. That's your nature. That is everyone's nature. That is the true being in ourselves. But through ignorance, we have forgotten. Wake up to that nature. You are dreaming this hideous dream. You are afraid of death, suffering, and misery. You are afraid of meeting this world. Everywhere there is only fear, but this only is a bad dream. Wake up. Where is God? You are God. Where is Christ? You are Christ. Let that Christ be resurrected in you. You ask, what about my personality? Do you want to hug that pig body? What is that personality? Your character? Your individuality? What you are? Do you want to stay as you are? Can you continue to stay as you are the next moment? Are you not dying to your personality every moment of your life? Consider when you have intense sense pleasure, you forget yourself, don't you? It is by forgetting your little self, your so-called personality, that you find your true self. The ocean of existence, knowledge, and bliss is what you are. That is your true personality. In that ocean is the fulfillment of everything that you are seeking and desiring. When you reach that, you will laugh, just like Indra, the king of the gods, laughed. What a bad dream it was. I want every one of you to think of the true nature of yours and meditate upon that. Do not consider yourselves mortal human beings, subject to disease.
Irma, you seem to have moved away from
Oh,
your
did I?
microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You become a little soft.
Is it? Let me, can you hear me now better?
That's better, yes.
Okay. Okay, wake up to that nature. You are dreaming this hideous dream. You are afraid of death, suffering, and misery. You are afraid of meeting this world. Everywhere there is only fear. But this only is a bad dream. Wake up. Where is God? You are God. Where is Christ? You are Christ. Let that Christ be resurrected in you. You ask, what about my personality? Do you want to hug that pig body? What is that personality? Your character? Your individuality? What you are? Do you want to stay as you are? Can you continue to stay as you are the next moment? Are you not dying to your personality every moment of your life? Consider when you have intense sense pleasure, you forget yourself, don't you? It is by forgetting your little self, your so-called personality, that you find your true self. The ocean of existence, knowledge, and bliss is what you are. That is your true personality. In that ocean is the fulfillment of everything that you're seeking and desiring. When you reach that, you will laugh, just like Indra, the king of the gods, laughed. What a bad dream it was. I want every one of you to think of the true nature of yours and meditate upon that. Do not consider yourselves mortal human beings, subject to disease and death. That's not you. Meditate upon your true divine nature. If you cannot identify yourself with that, if you cannot meditate upon this truth, that thou art, or I am Brahman, the ocean of existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute, then try to think and believe. If you believe in anything, believe in the truth that the kingdom of heaven is within. Live in that consciousness. That is religion. That is resurrection. That is attainment of perfection. Through such meditation, you come face to face with the reality, which is your divine nature. Let the dream vanish. Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor any of these beings. Nor is there any future in which we shall cease to be. In the Svetashvatara Upanishad, we read, this vast universe is a wheel. Upon it are all creatures that are subject to birth, death, and rebirth. Round and round it turns and never stops. It is the wheel of Brahman. As long as the individual thinks that it is separate from Brahman, it revolves upon the wheel in bondage to the laws of birth, death, and rebirth. But when, through the grace of Brahman, it realizes its identity with him, it revolves upon the wheel no longer. It achieves immortality. What is that experience? Shankara expresses it. The ocean of Brahman is full of nectar, the joy of the Atman. The treasure I have found there cannot be described in words. The mind cannot conceive of it. My mind fell like a hailstone into that vast expanse of Brahman's ocean. Touching one drop of it, I melted away and became one with Brahman. And now, though I return to human consciousness, I abide in the joy of the Atman. This is the experience of those who are free while living. That is the ideal, to attain that knowledge of Brahman, of our true nature, while living here. Then it is said, those people devote themselves to God, meditate upon Him, and live in the consciousness of God. Either while living or at the moment of death, they will attain the vision, they will have samadhi. Again, failing to achieve that, they will be born in higher and higher realms of consciousness until they come to the highest plane called Brahmaloka. There they realize their oneness with Brahman and do not return. This process is called gradual liberation. Whatever one thinks at the moment of death is most important because that thought has been the most predominant throughout life. A person attached to money will think of money. Be attached, but be attached to God. To quote the Gita, at the hour of death, when a man leaves his body, he must depart with his consciousness absorbed in me. Then he will be united with me. Be certain of that. Whatever a man remembers at the last, when he is leaving the body, will be realized by him in the hereafter, because that will be what his mind has most constantly dwelt on during his life. Therefore, you must remember me at all times and do your duty. If your mind and heart are set upon me constantly, you will come to me. Never doubt that. Make a habit of practicing meditation and do not let your mind be distracted. In this way, you will finally come to the Lord, who is the life giver, the highest of the high. Those of you who know the history of Christianity will remember how the idea of reincarnation was accepted by some priests and bishops for 500 years. Not only that, they held the belief that this creation has no beginning and no end. They also believed, like Hindus, that everyone ultimately will attain that reality. But eventually, that view was voted down, and since then, the idea of reincarnation has become an anathema to the Christian church.
Anathema.
Anathema, okay. But eventually, that view was voted down, and since then, the idea of reincarnation has become an anathema to the Christian church. It is very difficult to translate the word karma into English. According to the particular usage of the word in a sentence, it means different things. But when it comes to the law of karma, the word karma means actions or work. This action includes thoughts as well. Thinking is a process of action. Again, it is not only what we think consciously, but also subconsciously, because subconscious thoughts become habitual thoughts and actions.
Now, let's take note of that,
Sure.
because the same is true of spiritual practice. If we do spiritual practice, it becomes a habit. If we're dedicated to it for some years without any real breaks, it will become a habit. And like any habit, it will assert itself. You will miss it if you don't do your spiritual practice in the morning. Your day will be different. You will miss that time that you didn't spend in spiritual practice. So it isn't just bad habits or indifferent habits that persist in this way. It is good and auspicious habits, and they will ultimately drive out the other habits because you learn the difference between the quality of your experience when you're doing certain things, spiritual practice, and when you're doing others. And so the others they may be a necessity for your existence, but they will no longer be blind habits. So this is a very important point that the Swami is making. And notice the prior promise that you will succeed either in this life at the moment of death, or if that doesn't work, you will slowly progress after death until you reach Brahmaloka and realization of your true nature. This is called the path of the saints, or the solar path. And so it's richly to be desired to do these spiritual practices so that they are what you're thinking of as you depart the body. Any comments or questions or concerns? Anything at all from anyone? All right.
Hi, good evening, brother. I was just thinking it's a little reassuring about at the time of death, because I always worried that you would become distracted or you're in a situation where you don't really have control because you're in a hospital environment, and say a spider goes across the wall and gets your attention, and then I thought, oh no, that means you become a spider in your next life. So this is reassuring that your past actions come into
Yes.
light, not just the moment that you cross over. So that was very reassuring to me.
Good, good, good. And it's meant to be. And indeed, you won't be distracted by, pain is distracting. So that's very difficult. But if you're not in severe pain, these thoughts that have occupied your mind uh, in meditation and spiritual practice, they will assert themselves and carry you forward. So it's meant to be reassuring, and I'm glad you were reassured. Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear.
I have a thought about, sorry.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Let me see if it'll come back into my head. Oh, about, was that Lynette that was just talking about just now? Okay. I think that, the worrying about, am I going to be fully, conscious when I'm dying, when I'm passing over. Most of us experience pain well before that day when we're going to leave our bodies. And it's a great opportunity when we are in pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, mental pain, to use those times of being in pain to apply our spiritual practice to that pain. I myself find that really useful. It's also really interesting what happens when you do that, rather than saying, "Oh, I can only meditate when I'm feeling good." Sometimes you are too distressed or are in too much pain to meditate, but you can pray or you can do some spiritual practice. So I just wanted to say that, so that when we do come to that time when we're going to leave our bodies, we've practiced, so if we are in pain or we are distracted, we have practiced with those sorts of things before. That's all.
Very, very well said.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
articulate.
you. Yeah.
And reassuring.
I think, I don't know, if you thought of a deer at the instant of death, you're going to turn into a deer, because it says, if your mind and heart are set upon me constantly, you will come to me. So, I think, there's no way, like, let's say you're in a car crash and it's just instantaneous and you see the car, you're like, oh, and then boom, you're gone. But if your mind had been constantly on God, then I think he's pretty much telling you that, you're good.
Precisely. And furthermore, even in that scenario that you just mentioned, the car crash, because the divine is always with us, the divine will reach out and remind us. We're told that very explicitly in the scriptures, that the divine will reach out and remind us at that moment. Don't forget, here I am. My hand is extended. Put your hand in mine, and away we'll go.
It said not just your mind, but your heart.
Oh, yes.
And so your heart is not instantaneous and connected to your mind like that in a car crash. So, I mean, I think I think it's okay.
I think you're right.
But that's the thing, when all the swamis upload the talks from the weekends, watch them,
Right.
do the japa, do the meditation, keep your mind on the highest thing you can as much as you can.
Amen, brother. That is not just so you'll get results later, You get the results now. When you do that, you find it changes the quality of your day-to-day experience, and you live more joyfully, more thoroughly. You live as Satchidananda, whether you even know the term or not. And so, yes, just keep on keeping on. Thank you, all of you. Anything else from anyone?
Namaste, Brother Shankara. Namaste, everybody.
Yes, Shailesh.
I have a little pessimistic perspective, and the reason why I'm saying is because I've read a good bit about the experiences of all great souls, monks, that, like Cindy was saying, even before the death arrives, the time when the pain and suffering kicks in, the mind is completely disturbed. There is no way that at least I'm thinking of myself, that I will be able to chant and meditate on God. When I get sick, the mind is completely disturbed. When the suffering is there, it's not. There is no continuous remembrance of God. The Guru Mantra may go on. That's the point which I'll come back at the end and so obviously it's, and I'll give you an example. Swami Yogeshananda's Guru, Swami Yatishwarananda, was the vice president of the Ramakrishna order. All his life, direct disciple of Swami Brahmananda. And he writes in the book, Swami Yogeshananda, that when he went to meet his Guru Maharaj, he was on his deathbed and he was suffering. And his mind was completely turned upside down. And he said, please pray for me because this pain is too much. So you can see that the body, we have to pay the debts. It's no fun. So my understanding is that way before that, like Bhagavan Das, you were saying, and Brother Shankar, both of you were saying, way before that, we live a life like that, where we chant and we live a spiritual life. And then at the end, we don't know, because we cannot put off and say, you know what, when I'm going to be in a retirement facility, I'm going to chant the name of God. And even if the pain is there, I'm going to, it doesn't happen. I think I'm going to be something like that. And to the reference with that, I will, there was a Western monk, a direct disciple of Swami Yogananda, the autobiography of a yogi fame. And he said that at the end, the mind, like Brother Shankara said, at that last moment, the only topmost thought that's what he said, so I'm just quoting him, is that what you have thought all your life, not just last few years. So all your life, what has been on your mind, that is what will capture. I don't know, now you can say that the God, like Brother Shankara saying that when you are in a car crash, the God will remember. But unless you have lived a life like that, nobody's going to come and remind you that. So that's my thought. So it encourages me, and I would say that, share my thought is that we have to live life all along, at least 25, 30 years, way before that final days are kicked in, or final year is kicked in, or final 2 years is kicked in, And I've seen quite a few old people, pass away, and I've seen miserable people are miserable, especially who do not do spiritual practice. But I don't want to go that route, but most of us here are devotees. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shailesh, as always. Thank you for your thoughts and for your very organized way of thinking about these things. It's good to hear from you. So,
that's why I think it's significant that he said your mind and your heart, because your heart is not as fickle as the mind, and your heart, belongs to God long before, for us, it'll all be long before the instant of death. And so, we can't guarantee what the mind's going to be doing at the time of death, but if once your heart belongs, it belongs,
Yes. And according, with regard to what Shailesh said, even for the person who is using the example of the car crash, whether the person knows that God's hand is extended or Holy Mother's hand is extended. It's extended. And the love of God for us and the desire for our well-being is very established by all of the scriptures that we read. Christian, Hindu, doesn't matter. That so when we have the trust in that, then there's much less for us to worry about. And the less we can worry, the more able we are to do spiritual practice. Because worry is just a form of distraction that keeps us from our practice. And we must remember that spiritual practice isn't something that is done just sitting on a cushion morning and evening. Spiritual practice is something that involves our every decision, our constant discrimination between what deserves my attention and what does not, day in and day out, hour in and hour out. And that story of Indra as the pig, you know, the gods could see clearly that this did not deserve Indra's attention. It was far, far below him. But in those moments, he didn't know it. And in our moments of ignorance, we don't know it. But God knows. And so it is always trying, always offering to rescue us.
I'd like to add something. I also, first of all, Shailesh, I don't think that what you said was at all pessimistic. I think you realized it wasn't as you continued talking. I find that comforting too. Just your whole life practice is what's bringing, it doesn't just fall away. But in the back of this book we're reading are those seven, is it seven? Sayings, and one of them is the secret of meditation is fourfold. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. Number 2, patience. Number 3, perseverance. And the one I want to highlight here is number 4, expectation.
Yes.
And I feel like, if we wonder or worry about what's going to happen when we die, that's very different than having the expectation that the divine is going to be there for you. And if you have that expectation and that in your mind, this is what is going to happen because this is what they have promised me.
Yes.
And the worry goes away.
Very well said.
It's gonna, and I love those sayings in the back of this book.
I do too.
Yeah, but that fourfold one is
Yep. And expectation, and as Swami Prabhavananda would triple underline, that expectation is part of your spiritual practice at every moment. I may become realized at any moment. I have no idea when this is all going to bear fruit. All I'm promised is that it will. And so if I keep in mind those other 3 instructions, particularly the first one, the chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. You are that. And then the instruction, learn to feel that living presence. And when you do begin to feel that living presence as the true nature of your being, Nothing can convince you. Nothing can convince you that it isn't so, because it's so powerful and so subtle. It just reaches into every corner of your mind, the subconscious as well as the conscious. And so it affects those subconscious decisions that turn into a speech, the first thought, then speech, then action. Thank you, Cindy. Anything else from anyone?
You know, one of the things that, as far as worrying or anything, or to really dive in and really contemplate that there's no reality outside of the now, to me really is kind of the linchpin that undoes so many things, that makes, you know, the realizations possible, to really to really understand it's all here and now, and there is no reality outside of that.
Amen. Well said.
Swami first said that at the beginning of this topic, Brother Shankara, whither do we go? Why bother about all these questions? Live your life, make the most of it. That's what he said. And then the theme continues: meditate, meditate, meditate. Perseverance, meditate, faith, devotion. These are all continuing throughout, all along, every book, every page.
Exactly. Anything else?
Something Ram Dass said that I thought was really good is, like, you know, one time he was telling a story about all these people coming up to him, said, "Yeah, we're seekers," you know, and he said, "Why don't you try being a finder?"
Right.
I thought that was so funny.
It is. It's wonderful. And it's so like him, you know. So like his sense of humor. Yeah, that's why I like the
You know, but you know,
aspirant rather than spiritual seeker.
yeah,
But
but
we're
you know,
not
the thing about Prabhavananda said, you know, you could become enlightened at any time. Well, if it's not now, then when is it?
exactly. And it'll be that now, exactly when it is that now. As Sri Ramakrishna said, it happens at exactly the right time. Anything else from anyone? All right, please read on, dear.
Karma, again, has two kinds of affects. One is that it forms character, good or bad, or a mixture of good and bad, because what you may call good karma has something bad in it. The other effect is either happiness or suffering and misery. For instance, one may complain that people are hostile. There is a persecution complex. But the question arises, do you love these people? If you love, you will find love. If you yourself are hostile, you get the reaction of hostility. We read in the Old Testament, even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. And from Manu, the lawgiver of India, thou canst not gather what thou dost not sow. As thou dost plant the tree, so will it grow. The English philosopher John Locke said that the mind is a tabula rasa, a blank piece of paper. But other Western philosophers have disagreed. In the words of Plato, if your favorite doctrine, Socrates, that knowledge is simply recollection, is true, it necessarily implies a previous time in which we learned that which we recollect. But this would be impossible unless our soul was in some place before existing in human form. Immanuel Kant said, there is no religion in this world which does not believe in immortality. And Schopenhauer points out that if you take the first birth theory and claim your soul is immortal, you are saying an infinite stick with one end in view. It's a great blessing that we do not remember our past. Yet there comes a time in everyone's life in the course of progress when the past comes to you like in a moving picture, but you are not affected by it. You are detached from it. There is a misunderstanding in India as well as in the West that the law of karma creates bondage. So let's give up karmas, all actions, they say. But Sri Krishna in the Gita emphasized that giving up of actions does not mean renunciation of action. We have to act. Nobody can live without action. But Sri Krishna gives us the secret of action. It is as if through action we unwind our karmas. By karma, we're winding bondages. Unwinding the thread of karma, we obtain freedom from karma through renunciation of the results of the action by offering everything to God. The illumined soul, whose heart is Brahman's heart, thinks always, I am doing nothing. No matter what he or she sees, hears, touches, eats, whether moving, sleeping, eating, grasping, opening the eyes, or closing the eyes, the illumined soul always knows I am not seeing, I am not hearing. It is the senses that see and hear and touch the things of the senses. There is in Judaism, as well as in Christianity, the idea of immortality. From the Psalms, consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Then there is the quote from the Gospel according to St. John. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my words and believeth on him that sent me shall have everlasting life and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death into life. If a man keep my saying, he shall never see death. And there was the conversation at the well. Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into eternal, everlasting life. St. Paul pointed out, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Neither does corruption inherit corruption. Behold, I saw your mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed when this corruptible self hath put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. Then shall be brought to pass the saying that it is written, death is swallowed up in victory. While we're pursuing the fulfillment of legitimate aspirations in life, which are desirable, attractive, sweet, and lovable, at the same time, throughout our life, we must have the discrimination that these are passing, that we shall have to renounce them sometime or other. The supreme goal of life is to reach liberation, to unfold the divinity that is within each human being in the universe. It is the same ideal that Jesus set forth. Be a perfect, even as the Father which is in heaven is perfect. Saint Paul said, "A or complete in Godhead." To realize God, to realize the Atman, the self, which is one with God, is to attain immortality. Here and now, not after the death of the body.
Just as Bhagavan Das was saying earlier, here and now. Somebody's got their mic open.
Yeah. Somebody's not there, but their voice is there. Okay. Okay, well, I think we're okay now. Shall I continue, Brother Shankara? Or would you like to have comments on this topic?
Anything from anyone else?
Well, I'm impressed that so many different philosophers are brought into this discussion. I mean, it shows that his knowledge is very profound. I mean, he mentions Kant and Locke and Schopenhauer, and I just had a question. When monks are studying, do they study in university, or is this part of their religious training
Swami
to address
Prabhavananda,
all these different philosophers?
before Swami Prabhavananda was a monk, he studied at University College in Calcutta, and he studied both philosophy and English literature. So yes, he was very familiar with these people, but it was a lifelong love. He continued to study. Swami Prabhavananda came to this country in 1925 and left the body on July 4th, 1976. So all of those years, those 50 years, he was busy learning, not just from books, but from people like Aldous Huxley, who were his disciples. Frederick Manchester, the great philosopher. So there were many people from whom the Swami was constantly learning. And of course, he read Swami Vivekananda constantly, and Vivekananda was very familiar with all of these philosophers as well. So both before and during Lynette, this is true of just about every nun, or if you come and I don't know if you'll be able to come and see Rajaprana this weekend here at the center, but you'll find she's very learned herself. She really knows her philosophers, and she knows her Bible. So poke that honeycomb and you'll come up with many wonders. How are we doing for time?
We have 6 minutes, Brother Shankara.
Okay.
A couple of paragraphs at least.
Anything else from anyone? All right, please read on, dear.
Christ pointed out, the kingdom of heaven is within. Then he said, except a man be born again, he cannot enter into that kingdom of God. It's a new birth, but you don't have to die to have that new birth. And it has to be a direct experience. You cannot have any idea of the beauty of the moon by looking at a painting of the moon, as you cannot appease your hunger if somebody else eats for you. Similarly, there are these exemplars: Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Ramakrishna, and all the great mystics of the world in every age. But simply believing in them will not help you. You have to reach that yourself. Now let us consider what after death, or what is death. In the Bhagavad Gita, we read, just as the dweller in the body passes through childhood, youth, and old age, so at death he passes into another body. Worn out garments are shed by the body. Worn out bodies are shed by the dweller within this body. New bodies are donned by the dweller like garments. There is another truth in the Upanishads. The knots of ignorance of the heart.
Please read that section from the Gita again, dear.
Sure.
It's one of the very early instructions that Krishna is giving to Arjuna about the nature of reality, and not to take so seriously this one body that he has, or the bodies that are about to be slain in the Kurukshetra battle. So please read that again.
Sure, Brother Shankara. Now let us consider what after death, or what is death. In the Bhagavad Gita, we read, just as the dweller in the body passes through childhood, youth, and old age, so at death he passes into another body. Worn out garments are shed by the body. Worn out bodies are shed by the dweller within this body. New bodies are donned by the dweller like garments. There is another truth in Upanishads. The knots of ignorance of the heart are cut asunder. Asunder, all doubts cease to exist. Effects of karmas become exhausted when he realizes him who is both far and near. That's from Mundaka Upanishad. I would like to explain to you in the words of Swami Vivekananda the true nature of the human soul and of the universe. He says that there's nothing outside Brahman, nothing at all. All this is He. I'm looking at you. What am I seeing in reality? God, 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 everywhere. He is in the universe. He himself is the universe, is this universe. Thou art the man, thou art the woman, thou art the young man walking in the pride of his youth, thou art the old man tottering on his staff. In the New Testament, you have the conception.
Unknown caller.
I can't talk now. I'm in class.
In the New Testament, you have the conception. In him we live, move, and have our being. The idea is God is immanent in the universe, the very essence, the heart, the soul of things. He manifests himself, as it were, in this universe. You and I are little points, little channels, little expressions, all living inside that infinite ocean of existence, knowledge, and bliss. We are all living in that ocean of Brahman all the time. The difference between one person and another, between angels and human beings, between humans and animals, between animals and plants, between plants and stones, is not of kind. Because everything from the highest angel to the lowest particle of matter is but an expression of that infinite oneness. The difference is only in degree. You and I are both outlets of the same Brahman, the same ocean that is God. You are of the same nature as God by your birthright, and so am I. You may be an angel of purity. I may be the blackest of demons. Nevertheless, my birthright is that infinite ocean of existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, and so is yours. You have manifested your power. Wait, I shall manifest mine, for I have it all within me. I'll stop here. It's right about your time, 8:30, Brother Shankara.
Very good.
We can follow next week after.
Perfect timing.
Yes. great closing.
Yeah,
Quick, in chat, if you look at that picture I just posted, right in the very center is a young Prabhavananda.
Thank you. I was hoping you were going to do that. Thanks. Nice, great discussion. Thank you, everyone.
well,
Really.
you're most welcome, dear.
Mm,
And I'm so glad you were with us.
Thank
So
you.
glad you were all here.
Mhm.
This is one of the highlights of the week, reading this stupendous book. And yes, I hope that everyone who has the opportunity comes to see Vrajaprana this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Starts with a potluck in the early, starts with Arati, then a potluck supper, then her talk, and so on. And so join us if you can.
Is she going to be on Zoom, Brother Shankara?
I'm sure they'll Zoom.
Her lecture
Okay,
She
okay.
does, yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
at the same time, right? 10 o'clock Saturday morning.
No, Saturday evening,
Evening. Okay.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
So Saturday evening. Look on the website
Okay.
where the details are, or
We
see your newsletter.
Okay, we will. Thank you.
So yes, Saturday evening and then Sunday morning. All right, anything else from anyone? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the Divine Being as the Mother and Father that are introduced in the prayer with which we start these sessions be secure in the knowledge that you are in the loving and protective embrace of that Mother and Father. So Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. May you be well and in bright spirits. Until Saturday, which is our next opportunity together, Saturday at noon, and then of course Rajaprana for the weekend. So hope to see you at any and all of those activities.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Good night, everyone.